Cuckoo! We're Isabel and Kim, girlfriends living in France and chatting about everything going on in our lives. Come hang out while we cheers with an Aperol Spritz, swap stories, and get into some deep talks and share what we've learned along the way. Subscribe and follow us at cuckoo.pod on Insta.
Okay, so we're not dressed alike today, which was a surprise when Isabel showed up at my house last week, and all of a sudden we were both in leopard.
Okay, but also to be fair, that was our test run. We weren't planning on actually using that as our first episode, but then we really liked it and thought, why not? So yeah, normally we won't match each other, but who knows? It could happen again.
It could happen randomly. So today we're excited to dive into our first topic, which is the joys of living in France and what we can all adopt from the way that the French live. So I was going to start with a couple things that first of all, I really enjoy living here. I have to just back up and say I've lived in a few cities in the United States. I've lived in, I grew up in the Midwest, so like Milwaukee, Chicago, and then I moved to Boston, and then I've lived in New York and San Francisco, and now this is technically my second time actually living abroad, but the first was as an exchange student in Spain, so I feel like it doesn't count. But anyways, I have really loved living in France. It is just a really special place, and I think one of the things that I've really appreciated is just how beautiful it is, like what the French do to purposely make things beautiful. And what I mean by that is like, it's really interesting how much effort they put into what I would say are very simple things. So
totally,
like from even what, I'm kind of the mom who used to, throw on like my Lululemon pants and drop the kids off at school and not care that much.
I still do that.
Okay. But I've noticed like it's definitely more important to just like pull yourself together, like look intentional about the way that you, want to present yourself. And so it's like from a personal standpoint, like each individual, but also just from the way that they arrange store displays to even like flower markets, like just like all the little things, the architecture, like things that are put, they're not just kind of thrown up and rushed. You can tell there's just so much thought like put into
It's
little
true.
things.
I think that there's a lot of thought put into how things appear. And then kind of when you combine it with some of these like beautiful landscapes that we have and the architecture and the lighting, which also the lighting is crazy sometimes. Even in Paris, the lighting is really beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's just, the beauty can be overwhelming sometimes.
and
I know that sounds cheesy, but it's just, I don't know. I grew up like in the suburbs of Boston with like strip malls and all this stuff. And it's just visually, it is so different.
Totally.
And it's sort of inspiring. And I'm not saying like, looks mean everything, but there's something to say like when you wake up and you see something beautiful every day. I don't know, it like
totally.
I find it inspiring and just very, I don't know, I like it.
I think it also makes you like appreciate things a little bit more. Like I sort of never really like stopped and even like looked around and you like can't help yourself here. And I don't know, you can tell me, Isabel, but like I was like, maybe it's just because I'm somewhat still new here, like 6 months in, but maybe still.
And even like my French husband is still like I feel like he's like astounded by the beauty of France too.
That's awesome.
And I mean, he's lived here most of his life.
So cool.
So yeah, I think everyone really appreciates it.
Yeah.
And one thing that I thought was really interesting when I was in graduate school, I did a 2-week class in Paris, and it was all about food because I was in school to be a dietitian. And so one of the speakers that came to talk to us was about how important it is to make things look beautiful in terms of food. And you really notice this when you go to the market and when you go into the food stores and even just all the little traiteurs. Like when you look in the window, they have everything. The way they arrange the food, it's almost like a clothing display. Do you know what I mean?
Totally, yes. Even what I notice the most, and I find myself like taking pictures of this, is, and it makes me want to eat like a lot more desserts, but the patisseries, Like the way that
the window displays. Yeah.
And then when you walk in and like the way it's displayed of like everything's like perfectly lined up, and it's like they spent like so much time making like the perfect like frosting decoration. Just everything just looks like.
No, it's
it makes
crazy.
you like because things are visually more appealing. I think in my mind they also taste better.
Totally. And it makes sense why you would do this. There's a reason that you like do the store windows. You want to bring people in, and it works.
And even restaurants, we haven't talked about like when you get served a plate, like it is so intentional that the plate looks beautiful. Like even from like the drizzling of the sauce to like an edible flower on top to like the portion is like in a beautiful like porcelain like everything just looks really pulled together and beautiful.
I think in the US sometimes this is something we associate with a really high-end experience.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean?
Michelin restaurant in the US.
Yes, like you would expect like the plate to be blah blah blah. But I feel like what's so interesting about France is this is kind of the standard, and it doesn't imply this like big fancy event. This is like your basic.
This could be like a normal meal.
Family
like
that sells their food at the market. Like they put this intention into it too. It really penetrates every aspect.
No, I love that. And talking about food, I know that's something you also love about living here.
Yes, for me, like when I think of like the joys of France, I automatically think of the food. Coming from the US, I actually was a dietitian in the US, and I spent a lot of time studying the food and learning all about like just everything about the food industry. And honestly, by the time I left the US, I felt like pretty depressed after learning.
I know.
Just knowing everything. And even the Academy of Dietetics in the US is sponsored by like Pepsi.
Yeah.
Which is just like
I know.
It's just a little depressing, and that's probably a topic for another time. But
I also worked at Kraft Foods to start my career.
Yeah, it's
and
just like big food, big pharma.
Labels.
It's so depressing.
Yeah.
And for me, just moving to France, and just like for me, the food is amazing, and the high quality food that everyone can afford, I think, is just such a good thing. And even right now, I will say that food prices since COVID have skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone is kind of struggling a bit to keep affording food because it's gotten really expensive.
Totally.
But when I first moved here, the thing that I always found so interesting, because when I was living in New York, I just didn't have a ton. I was a grad student. I didn't have a ton. I was babysitting. I didn't have a ton of money to spend on food. And I always wanted to buy organic, but there was such a big difference between like non-organic and organic. And when I first moved to France 5 years ago, there was probably like a 40-cent difference between non-organic and organic. I was like, oh, this is so interesting, because it really was accessible. Like for me in the US, it would be like $2, $3, $4 difference. So I was like, no, I'm taking the other one. And here I just love that everything was a little bit more accessible. Not so much right now, but I just like think the quality of the food. I love that the food goes bad fast. I know it can be inconvenient, but I love that ritual of thinking about what you're going to have the next like day or two for food, going to the store, buying it, going to the market.
Totally.
And I like that there's like an end life to the food. I feel like even when I was back in the US in this winter, I bought stuff for salads, and I kind of forgot about it because we ended up eating out a lot more than I thought. And almost 10 days later, I was like, oh, shoot, I forgot to make the salad.
No, totally.
And everything was fine.
Yeah.
Like crispy.
And it made you a little nervous.
And I was like, this is so weird. If I buy a cucumber in France and I don't eat it, 3 days, there's soft spots. Like I'm cutting parts of it out because I can't eat all of it. And 10 days later, from these like cucumbers from Whole Foods, like chugging on along.
It's so funny.
Issue.
Yeah, I have like.
Do you know what I mean?
Completely, because my mindset in the US used to be like, how long can I can I grocery shop the least amount to last the longest? Mm-hmm. And then here, it's been pretty interesting because now my goal is actually like I want an almost empty fridge.
Yep.
Because that's like a sign that like we're only eating what we're actually like needing that day or two.
And there's less waste this way too.
Yeah, for sure. And I find myself actually like sometimes if you prepare your food like meals for the week, you're like, oh, I have to eat that because I already bought that 5 days ago, etc. Versus like now I'm like, oh, I feel like salmon tonight. Like I'm gonna go to the fish market and actually just get salmon tonight. Versus I have to eat it because I bought it 5 days ago and planned it then when I had no idea what I'd have a taste for.
Yeah, I will say I am struggling with the keeping up with the grocery shopping now a little bit more since we moved here. Because when I was in Paris, it was. Like walking home from dropping my daughter off at daycare, I could swing by the store to grab stuff. Here now I have to take the car, and it's true. Like when you're, especially in the U.S., like you're working full time, you're in the car all the time. You don't have time to go to the grocery store every day because you have so many other demands. But so I'm still adjusting to that little piece here, but it is just such a pleasure to, for me, like I think one of my favorite things to do in France is to go to the farmer's market. And,
oh, totally.
Like really, if I have time and I'm by myself, I have to be by myself, because if I'm with like my husband and my daughter, I don't know, there's too much. I want to be
too much going on. You need to enjoy.
Too much going on. I want to just like focus and slowly stroll and like look at everything and see what's in season, like see what other, I love to watch what other French, like what the French people
the French are buying. Me too.
Because I'm like, okay, like that looks good. And honestly, if there's always like a few like good like sellers at each market that are the most popular.
And because there's a line. They sell out by like 10 a.m.
And like there will be a 10, 15 person line for a particular stand, and there'll be other stands where there's nobody. So then you're like, okay, this is definitely the good one. And then I want to know like, what are they getting?
Right.
And so I'm always listening and trying to get little tips.
I love that. I do that at the butcher even. Like I'm like, what does she make with that?
Yes.
Like I have no idea what that meat even is, but apparently this is like, she's buying a lot of it and she must be doing something amazing with it.
The thing that always makes me laugh, I don't know if you've noticed this, but French people always have a leek in their bag. Have you noticed this?
Yes, and I don't know how to cook with leeks.
So I think I actually, at one point when we lived in Paris, I was taking like pictures from behind of, I had so many, and I can't find them now because I wanted to put them on Instagram at one point, but I had probably like 20 plus pictures of just French people with like one leek in the bag. It's not like they have like a bunch of leeks.
No,
like just
it's like one.
And I remember going home and asking my husband, like, what are they making with leeks? And it turned into this kind of like inside joke between us, because it's true. Like French people are always eating leeks. Yeah. And I have now learned that there's a lot that you can do with a leek.
Really?
Because when I think of a leek, I think of like leek and potato soup.
Yeah, me too. And I don't know how to cook it.
Me neither. But so there is more than leek and potato soup. There's like leek tarts.
Wow.
They eat like raw leeks with a vinaigrette.
Good to know.
Of course, I'm drawing a blank now on the rest, but I will follow up with leek recipe.
The leek. I'm sure there's high interest.
But yeah, so for me, like
the food, totally,
and you can't beat it.
No, totally. I think for me, the other thing that I just really have appreciated is, at first I'll just say this was actually very annoying for me, and this could be particular to the south of France, so you can tell me, Isabel, but. I found like people move slower and with more intention and do everything with like, at first I just thought it was slow. So like I'd be walking behind someone on the sidewalk and they're just like what I would consider like slowly strolling. And I'm like, I got to get here.
Meandering.
I gotta get here. Meandering. Yeah. Thank you. That's a good word. And I was like, what are these people doing? Like, I was in the mindset of like, no, you go here, you got to get these errands done. Then you got to get to this, and this. And so it like annoyed me at first. And then it would also annoy me when I would stand in line to get, let's just say I was at like the patisserie to get like a coffee and like a baguette. And people would just be in line chatting with the woman who's working there and not even caring that I've been waiting there and needed and wanted to be served. And I just at first was like, do people not care about like getting places and doing things and like accomplishing, in my mind, like accomplishing a lot during the day? And I have found that like that's like such a way to live that doesn't make you happy, because for me, like I was always rushing and kind of doing things. And now I've actually been able to observe and watch like what the French are actually doing. And I noticed that they are walking slow because they're in a conversation or they're looking at something. Like I found it really interesting the other day. They were chopping a tree down on Cours Mirabeau, like, the thing. And Cours Mirabeau is like the main street, and it's beautiful in Aix and has like fountains and anyways. And all these people just suddenly stopped to watch like people cutting down a tree. And I was like, what is so great about that? And I realized it wasn't really about just the tree. It was like more about the pause of like, oh, something's changing and happening, and you're able to sort of like be present for it. And so, and then even like the conversation with the clerk, like I was like, oh, okay, like they're actually having a moment, and like I can learn patience. And so I think that's actually something that at first was like a negative that would annoy me. And now it's actually like a positive, because I'm teaching myself to do it for maybe the first time ever, because I had no idea really how to sort of slow down, to be intentional, to pause. And it doesn't imply, I just want to say that like you have all the more time here, but it just takes like a millisecond.
It doesn't change so much in terms of minutes of your day.
No, it really doesn't.
It's like for me, I always like when people speed.
Yeah.
How much faster is that?
How much time did you save?
Like when you like actually look at it, what did you get there like a minute and a half faster? Like what does that change?
Totally.
It doesn't like, I think sometimes we can feel like you have to get go.
Yes.
At the end of the day, like taking those little moments during the day
For sure.
actually just like rebalance your inner self a bit.
Yeah.
And you feel better.
Oh, no, for sure. And
But I relate to this too, because when I actually sort of used to take this personally when I first, because I moved here from New York City, which obviously is like go all the time.
Totally.
And I would be in a store or in line somewhere, and there would be other people working in the store, and they would be doing something else, and nobody would be addressing me. And I would be like, and I was also really in that kind of self-conscious phase because I didn't understand French. And I'm like, wait, am I doing something wrong here?
Yeah.
Like I always felt like I was doing something wrong, and that's why people weren't helping me.
Totally.
And then I realized it was just like, it's just a different type of customer service
For
here,
sure.
where like if the employees are having a conversation together there and they see that there's 6 people waiting in line to check out, they're not going to rush through they're not going to come back to their, in the US, they would be like,
oh,
okay,
sorry,
like,
I got to get,
and then apologize, like, sorry,
Right.
I didn't see you there.
Right.
They're going to finish their full conversation at the same speed that they were talking before, and then they'll come.
Yeah.
And like, yes, sometimes can it be a little annoying? Sure.
Yeah.
But like life goes on.
Right.
And I don't know. I feel like I'm really adjusted to that now, but I was so thrown off by that because I was like, I must be doing something wrong because I probably misunderstood something.
oh my
Maybe
gosh,
they're closed.
totally.
Maybe I can't buy this. I don't know. But it was so weird.
I had the same when I first moved. I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if the way I'm dressed, like I automatically am signaled that I'm not French. So then they, even if I haven't spoken a word yet, like that they just are ignoring me.
They just
but
know.
it's really not that.
It's so funny.
So so that's kind of, I think moving a little bit slower with intention is actually a very positive thing that I find like a joy of living here now because I appreciate it.
I completely agree. And I will add, though, that it's slower here than Paris.
I'm sure. Yeah, I was going to say, I bet like Paris is obviously similar to our New York City lifestyles. Even when we go there, I can already feel like
there's
just an energy.
There's more
pace
energy.
and,
It's just big city energy.
Totally.
And X is like small town vibes.
Yeah, in a good way.
In a good way.
Yes. So I think we also wanted to kind of talk about what can you really take from the way the French live, and what can we take? What have we like learned about ourselves? And I just think there's we've talked a little bit about this, but like something else that I think is super important to the French culture that I've also tried to kind of adopt myself is family time. Like, what I mean by that is like, so the weekends that for us in the United States, like my kids are still little, but they were in sports or gymnastics and like swimming, everything seemed to happen on the weekend, like especially Saturdays and sometimes like Sundays there were games. And so our entire weekend would be sort of filled with basically like kids' sports or activities.
Gotcha.
And we just like assumed this was normal. Like we'd kind of rush through our Saturday mornings because we'd have to get to like XYZ event. And then we would like maybe have some like quick social time, like a quick lunch with some people. And then it would be like, it was just a rushed weekend. Like I kind of would get to the end of Sunday night and be like, whew, like now
I need a break.
Yeah, I kind of need a break and I need to like prep for my week now. And like all this, like the household stuff just kept sort of adding up. Like I'm like, oh, I've got to, on the weekend, I'll do the laundry. I've got to prep for the week of food and kids' lunches and et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure everyone has this same list.
Totally.
And what's interesting here is I don't necessarily know, and maybe Isabel, but like there's not necessarily like fewer kids' activities or sports. They just don't all happen on the weekends. And so your weekends are like able to be, they're really meant to be more like family time. So for example, on Sundays, like you can't plan to just like go shopping Sunday and like go out and like do whatever you want to do.
Like
even grocery shopping, like most
things
are closed.
If they're open, they close at noon.
Yes.
So you have to be like on your way to the store in the
Ready
morning.
to go.
Like up and at it.
Yes.
Up and at 'em.
So I think what I've taken away from that is like Sundays for the French are really meant to be days when you they make it so that you have to slow down. Like you can't.
Yes, you can't. If you wanted to go, you couldn't.
Yes. And I think that's like actually a beautiful thing because our Sundays are like probably now my favorite day. Like because
I actually agree because there's nothing
nothing you need to
like
feel like you
Saturday
need to
morning.
do.
Yes, like you can have kids
sure.
activities.
Yes.
All the towns have like little associations. You can do tennis.
Yeah.
But everything wraps up by noon, I would say. And I would
sure.
also say people do birthday parties on Saturday.
Yes, a lot of
But,
birthday parties.
you know, from Saturday late afternoon through Monday morning, like there's nothing.
No.
And I think that most French families will like go to the market and have like a family lunch on Sunday afternoon. And it's like, it's not just like a little quick meal. Like it's a long lunch. You maybe have a drink, you have an appetizer, you have your main meal, and then you just sit and talk for a few hours.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think is a little interesting about this is I'm in a few like expat groups on Facebook.
Oh,
and
nice.
one of the things that people always talk about is how French in-laws expect young children to sit at the table for the whole time during these really long Sunday family meals. And it's true. Like there is like, you know, you all get together and a meal is not fast in France. It's a slow thing, which can be a good thing. It's jarring when you first get here.
Yes.
But I just think that the overall idea of taking that like kind of like family time reset, being present with the people that you
For sure.
love is such a nice way to go into the week.
Yes. And you actually feel like you've had quality family time, not like you rushed and like all of a sudden I'm like annoyed with the kids and like ready to put them to bed.
Yeah.
Versus like we actually try now on Sundays to like find an activity that's not just kid focused versus like I would try to do that in the US. I'd be like, oh, we should do like this kids park,
Like
or
go to trampoline park.
right? Or like, oh, it has a good playground, so we'll go there. And now it's like, well, what do we like actually as a family really like enjoy? And I don't just like little things like we've been doing more like art as a family or playing a board game if it's like, you know, if we're inside and if we're outside, like even just taking walks as a family. Like it sounds so simple, but it was like something we never did as a family.
And that's like very French parent style too, because one thing I've really noticed about French parents is they don't run around doing things just for their kids. Like they do things for them and their kids come along.
Yes.
And in turn, like, I don't know, the kids just are able to be in so many different situations. And of course, like young kids, like, you know, toddlers have meltdowns, but like they're used to being in those situations. And I think it's good for children to know that they're not the center of
the
universe, you know? And as adults, like you're working hard during the week. Like the weekends also should, I've noticed this a lot about French friends, they don't feel guilty about doing things for themselves.
Totally.
And if they bring their kids, great. Like, cool. But it's not, they're not going to spend their whole weekend doing things just that their kids want to do. They're going to do things that they want to do. And their kids, I think most of the time, see their parents like something and end up enjoying it too. I just think it's a nice way of.
Yeah. Or the kids find something that like they have to sort of invent creative ways of doing things and entertaining themselves. And like, for example, as well, like you and I, we went to like a winery a few Sundays ago, right? And like, it was something like you and I wanted to do on a Sunday and they had like food trucks and then like, there was just like big open field and the kids like ended up, remember they were like
running around that hole and like climbing on something. And they had
they invented their own games.
And we had a great time,
we had a great time too.
We had crepe, we had wine.
Exactly.
It was so much fun.
So I think things like that are just more, I don't want to say like, they just adopt the mindset that like it's really family time. And I've tried to do
everyone's welcome. I think that's another thing in the US where it seems like sometimes there's adult spaces and kid spaces, and anything that involves like a restaurant or food often feels like an adult space in the US because it's like people don't want kids making sound or any of that stuff. And I think that here it's so nice that everyone is welcome. And it really just caters to that like family vibe. People are encouraged to spend time all together.
Yeah. I mean, we used to live near
even
Napa
weddings.
Valley.
Like if your children are not invited to a wedding, it would be really poorly seen here.
Really?
Yeah. Like we went to a wedding this summer and there was like a room set up with like a place where kids could sleep. There were some babysitters there.
Gosh. Wow.
But I remember like, you don't have a wedding and only invite the parents. Like really the whole family comes because it's a family celebration. And I just love that about
interesting
life here. And it's true. Like why can't, I remember being a kid, like I was brought.
I
feel like it's more of a, like our kids generation thing where it's so separate between parents and kids. Cause when I was a kid, I remember falling asleep like under, like on chairs and like we would go over to friends' houses and I would like wake up with like my dad carrying me
Yeah.
up the stairs. You know what I
Same.
mean?
Oh my gosh,
And I
totally.
feel like that's very much how they still do things here.
Yeah.
And in the US, it's like we get a baby. Even when we go to the US, like, well, we were to
Get a
Miami, we get a
babysitter.
babysitter
Yeah, of
and we
course.
go out by ourselves.
Same. I know. It's actually interesting. I had a French lesson this morning and we learned about French culture in French. And we were learning today about like party etiquette, which was actually a very interesting
That's a good one.
topic.
Yeah.
And part of the party etiquette, like, you know, you had to say like, c'est vrai or c'est faux. Like that means like it's true or it's not true. And one of the interesting things I learned on the topics of kids is she said, so we got through all of it. And then she asked, what advice would you give me if I were going to a party in the United States and I got an invitation? And I, you know, the first
this
thing,
is so
it was so interesting.
interesting.
So I said, you should ask if it's a kid-friendly party or if this is adults only. And she looked at me like
Like you had 5 heads.
yeah, like why would I need to ask that? Like,
Yeah.
and I said, oh, because most of the time, if someone's like inviting you to a party in the evening, especially at someone's house or actually out, it would be you would not just like show up with your kids. Like that would be like a faux pas, pretty much. I think.
Yeah. No,
And
totally.
so I said that, and she was like, I said, is it like the same in France? And she said, no, it's actually like, of course kids would be welcome. She goes, they would write on there on the invitation. She goes, which would never happen. Like no kids allowed.
Yeah.
Which I just found super interesting.
Well, and I think that Americans are also stricter about bedtime.
yes, I mean, I'm actually one of those people.
Yeah. I go back and forth.
Yeah.
In the summer, it's like
Yeah.
whatever goes, but during school year, it's, I mean, you know, it gets harder when they have to be up at a certain time.
For sure,
But
for sure.
I think that most people are okay, like on a weekend, if their kids stay up till midnight, and even really young kids.
Yes. Yes.
Or
I mean,
they're
our
just,
kids
like-
are still
Our kids are pretty young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was one of the things I thought was worth sharing of the party etiquette. We can
Yeah.
talk about that. There's
That's
a lot more
probably
party
another-
etiquette another time.
That's a good one. Okay, so for me, I think that I've adopted 2 things from, I mean, I've adopted more, but 2 of the ones that I've like really adopted are the goûter. Do you know what the
No,
goûter
I mean,
is?
I only know because I've now heard the word, and then you told me
Okay,
a little.
so
But you should
this
back up
is-
and explain.
This is funny. This is actually like I think my video that I did on TikTok
Yes.
with the most views ever was about the goûter,
goûter.
and it was basically like French kids don't have an after school snack; they have a goûter, and it went viral for a few reasons. But like the goûter is technically an after school snack. I was just kind of doing like a play on words that
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't pick up on. But it is a little bit different than an after school snack in the sense that it's more seen as a meal.
Mm-hmm.
So in France, you have the petit déjeuner, the breakfast.
Yep.
You have déjeuner, lunch. You have goûter, which is at 4:30, usually 4:30.
Yep.
Kids get out of school at 4:30, and then you have your dinner. And typically people eat much later than we do in the U.S. Because they're eating a goûter at 4:30. So you're not having dinner at 5 o'clock.
Right.
And I would say like the goûter that like my husband, that I guess our age grew up with in France, would be just like fresh baguette from the bakery, a square of chocolate like stuffed inside of it. And that's what you would have. Your parent would bring that to school to pick you up, and you would have a little like sweet treat after school. But the goûter can be kind of any snack that you have. And I have a goûter almost every day. And this is the other thing. Like goûter isn't just for kids, it's for the whole family. I think you grow up having your goûter, but then you don't drop that meal as an adult.
Huh.
And so like for me, I always have like a little something to hold me over around 4 or 4:30, like usually a little piece of chocolate or maybe one of those like pudding dessert yogurt
That
things
you
that I'm
love.
obsessed with. But it's such a thing. And like my daughter, I always like when she comes home, she has her goûter, or if she's in after school, I send it with her. But it's like I always give her like some chocolate, or maybe it's a compote, or it could be a pain au chocolat or a croissant.
Yeah.
But that I love the goûter. And on the weekends, we usually like we'll bake a little cake and we'll all sit outside and have our goûter together, and just like a nice little moment. So
Now, how did you start that? Like, was that your husband? Like,
I mean, I guess it mainly started when my daughter started school. Because when
okay.
I would go pick her up, she would be so hungry.
Yeah.
Because they start at 8:30 and they finish at 4:30.
Yeah,
And they
it's a
eat
long
lunch.
day.
I think they ate lunch at like
11:30.
11:30.
Yeah.
And they didn't have they actually at her school, they didn't have an after school snack in
okay.
Paris. So that was at 4:30 she was so hungry. So I would, and we lived very close to the school, but I would bring something for her to eat on the walk home. Because she would otherwise like fall into a puddle of tears.
Right.
You know, like hangry, like break down.
Totally.
so that's kind of when it started. But then I guess like we've also like been invited over for goûters at people's houses.
Right.
So like that's also a good opportunity on say on like a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Maybe you're invited to goûter at a French person's house. So you come with your kids and the kids will have like a little sirop, which is, you know, water with the grenadine or like a sugary syrup mixed into it. And then like maybe bake a cake or something like that. And the adults would have that. Maybe they would have a glass of wine too or something. Yeah. But that's like a little.
I thought it was interesting. Like at first, when I heard about goûter and my kids were telling me about it, and then obviously I've like seen it a lot and heard about it. My first reaction was like, because in the US you'd be like, that's so unhealthy. Like they're gonna just eat cake, or like I was like, they're putting like bread in chocolate, like you know, or chocolate
or
and
like
bread.
You know, so many kids show up with like they have a pain au chocolat at 4:30,
yes, which is like
to the American mindset, I'd be like, wait, what? You're having that right before dinner?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then what I've learned here, and you were sharing this with me, like that you just that's like in lieu of dessert. So you're not gonna like then have dinner and then give your kids dessert at like 8:00 when it's like bedtime and they're then running around with sugar, which is actually what we still do. So and I'm like, maybe I need to change this a little bit. Yes,
to the goûter.
So I'm learning, but I think at first glance you like the U.S. would be like, what? Like we're trying to avoid, you know.
No, but it works great
but
because then they have that little like sugar boost after school, and I mean like we have. I guess dessert, but after my daughter eats dinner, I always offer her just like a plain yogurt, and sometimes usually she has it, but that's like her little kind of bedtime snack.
Oh, I love that.
No sugar in it.
But good for you. I mean, my kids would right now be like, "What? This isn't dessert."
And then the one other thing that I have kind of like really adapted is sort of just like the less is more vibe, and this goes to everything like. For makeup, for skincare, for clothes. I don't want tons of things. I want a few good things.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
And I mean, I used to always buy Zara and like that was like my go-to for clothes. And now I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy one nice sweater each season. So like I treated myself to this nice sweater in the fall from Bash.
Oh, nice.
And I just bought myself another new one this spring. And that's probably like all I'll buy. But both those sweaters are really nice and they're classic and I'll wear them a lot. And I just am really focusing on buying few things that are of better quality.
I love that. I'm not quite there. I think
I've been here for 5 years too. And I haven't bought from Zara in almost a year. So
okay, I'm shameless to say, I love Zara.
I still buy a lot of Zara for my daughter because
I buy Zara for my daughter too, and my son too. But yes, I think it's a better way of living actually, and I do too. And I definitely am on board with it. I think what my husband jokes with me is he's like, you say you're going to buy a few quality things and you end up buying those quality things, but then also all the like non-quality, fast fashion things. And so I'm trying to like, if I'm going to buy like this season, I felt like I did better. Like I needed one pair of black boots that was like an everyday boot, but also could like somewhat be a little bit dressed up. And so I really spent some time doing this, and I didn't like go to the super high end, but I also didn't buy
that will last you, that you can probably change the soles and will last you
exactly.
for seasons. This was something that I was so shocked when I met my husband that he, like one of the first things that he said, he was like, oh, I have to bring my shoes to like get resoled. And I was like, what? Like, is this the olden days? You know, like, I don't know. I pictured like getting your shoes resoled, like a cobbler. And there was a cobbler on our street, like an old fashioned, it looked like when you walked into his store, it felt like you were back in like the 40s or 50s.
Totally.
And he just had everyone in the neighborhood's shoes like redoing their soles. And it's because people are buying like a nice pair of leather shoes and then they're having them like cleaned and polished and they resold them when they get worn out. And it's just such a more, it's a more sustainable way of living. And then you feel good. You have like one nice, it feels really good to have a nice quality
because
item.
You actually get excited by that item like almost every time you put it on or wear it or so I'm going to be adopting that as well. Maybe not.
But look, take your time.
That I just wanted to talk about that I'm also trying to adopt, which kind of goes in line as well with what you were saying about the buy like fewer but like higher quality things. This is in my mind like what the French do well is like sort of like moderation of everything. So it's like moderation of like how they eat. Like moderation of like, yes, they may be drinking wine at lunch, but it's not like 2 bottles and they're slugging wine. Like
Totally.
it's like enjoyable, like maybe 2 glasses like with their meal. And it's like they're not overindulging, like because it's like a holiday and it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna go
Gotta get it in
crazy,
now.
gotta
Yep.
get it in, and I'm gonna eat like all the sweets in the world and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then like sort of what I used to do is like kind of go crazy, and then I'd be like, the next week I got to be so good, like I'm gonna do not eat carbs, I'm gonna blah blah blah, like the list goes on. And I find here like everything's just like more even, like there isn't these like spikes and like roller coasters of sort of life, and it's like related to like, I mean, food, drinking, there's probably other things.
I think it relates. It's almost like intuitive, like the theory of intuitive eating, but applied to everything in life. And I completely agree with you. It's just like steady instead of ups and downs and ups and like kind of like binge and purges a little bit. But I think this is such a difference between the two cultures because it's true. Like people in France don't like drink to get drunk. Right. And I think in the US, like, if you're going out for a night, you have one night out, you have to want to do everything all in one night. But here it's really, and not to say I'm sure like French people go out and get drunk sometimes, but the idea, the connotation of alcohol being indulgent isn't really a thing. Like alcohol is paired with the meal. Right. It's part of the taste of the meal. Yeah. And it's not seen as something like that.
Whereas of the lifestyle, I think, versus like something you do like because you like are rewarding yourself, or you're like, oh my gosh, my day's over. Like I can't wait to have like a glass of wine.
Yeah. It's like you would have that because it tastes good with what you're eating for dinner. And I feel like if someone, I mean, when I go out to lunch with my husband, we always have a glass of wine. And I feel like to the American eye, someone would be like, oh my gosh, they're drinking at lunch
Monday and it's
on
lunch.
A Monday.
Yeah.
But that's just not, it's not because you're drinking for the alcohol to feel different. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
And I feel like it's like that with food. But look at the goûter. Like children are given sugar after school and it's not.
But it's in moderation.
It's not seen as a bad thing. And also, so then you don't grow up having these cravings. And I think the alcohol is tied to this too. Like their drinking age isn't 21 in France.
But they're
it's 18 and kids are drinking wine with their families way before that. So it has never been this thing that's held from them.
Yes.
So it holds less interest as well. So it's like the sugar. I feel like in the US, you grow up and people are like, no sugar, no this, no this. The second you're on your own in college, everyone gains weight because they're able to eat whatever they really want to eat. And same with drinking. They're able to drink. And it's just a bad combo. And I agree. I think it's much more intuitive here.
Yes. And that's actually something like we're trying to do a little bit better. It's like, okay, like instead of like, you know, just like for us, like I would be like, oh, I can't really drink that much during the week. Like I'm not going to because like I need to like work the next day. I got to be up early, blah, blah, blah. And like here, and then you'd save it all for the weekend. Like we'd be like, all right, it's like noon on Saturday. We're going to like make margaritas and like, you know,
let loose.
And we've like just more adopted like drinking with meals as like part of kind of like, you know, the lifestyle versus.
And it's better to drink with meals. You don't get drunk, you know, like you have food. I feel like in the US you drink a lot.
It's fun to like go out.
Of course.
Let's be honest.
But like on a day-to-day basis, like.
It's not, right. It's not like an everyday thing. It's just, I think so. Anyways, the moderation thing I think is something that I find really amazing. And it's same with the meals. Like I'm not like eating to, in fact, what I also learned at my French class this morning is there is no such expression in French that is I am full. Like you would never say to like if a waiter or waitress comes over and they say, oh, would you like dessert? Like you would never say in French like I am full. Like that would be considered like they wouldn't even, that expression doesn't even exist. Like the direct translation of that, there is one, but
oh my gosh, I always say like j'ai trop mangé. Like I ate too much. I'm probably not supposed to say that.
Like a very poorly bad seen. You're supposed to say je n'ai plus faim, like femme.
Okay, like I'm no longer hungry.
Okay. I'm no longer hungry, which it's like a variation of the words, but my French teacher today was telling me that full implies that you overindulge.
You overindulge.
Right.
Which is negatively seen. Yes.
Correct.
Okay, I agree
versus
with that.
like you're no longer hungry.
Yep.
Is actually a positive.
I like that.
I like that too. So
okay.
I'm going to adopt that in my how I eat too. Like I'm not eating to get full. I'm eating to like the point where I'm just no longer hungry.
I love that.
So lots of lessons today.
Lots of stuff. Okay, well, speaking of that, I think it's time for goûter.
Yes,
it's almost
I can't
4 o'clock.
wait. What did you bake? All right. Well,
All right.
tune in for next episode. Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Bye.